impact, and optimizing it. So we've got an interesting group from Dale. Should I just hand the mic to you? You can introduce it? Yeah. Okay.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for staying, and we want to make sure we deliver what you came to hear, impact and philanthropy. I'm going to immediately pass it to the front of the table with my fellow panelist from Robin Hood, who's going to share with some slides, give an introduction. Each of us will introduce ourselves and then deliver prepared remarks. I'm Dale St. Clair. I wear a couple of hats. I work with the Episcopal Church Foundation, Amalgamated Bank, the first social responsible bank in the United States, formed in 1923, and New York State Common Retirement Pension Fund on Sustainable and Climate Portfolio. We're going to start now.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Randy. I'm the Director of Major Giving at the Robin Hood Foundation, not the Robin Hood trading app. We've had that mix up already today, but we're the good guys. And Robin Hood was founded in 1988 by Paul Tudor Jones and Peter Borish, who I know is involved with this wonderful network of folks. And since then, we've raised and deployed over $3.5 billion in philanthropic capital to the most impactful nonprofits across the 5 boroughs, including where John works. And in my role, I oversee our Major Gifts program, our relationships and strategy with Robin Hood's most generous supporters, and make sure that they stay engaged and connected to our work. The way donors are engaging with Robin Hood has really changed over the years as the proliferation of family foundations, new strategies in philanthropy and giving, the transfer of wealth, DAFs. That was not a thing when I started doing this work. So excited to talk a little bit about that with you all, and I'll turn it over to John.
Hi, I'm John Williams. I am Chief Development Officer for Community Access. We are a mental health and housing organization in New York City, all over New York City. We have a purpose of helping to end homelessness in New York City and support the most vulnerable New Yorkers, many of whom are struggling with mental health concerns in the shelters, on the streets. And I think after 2+ years of COVID, all of us can realize that mental health impacts us all in a variety of ways. Is this just an intro now?
I think so.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Brittany Flatley. I run the philanthropic arm of EdLinks, which is called Educating the New Humanity. I run 18H Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization based out of California. We are designed as a strategic driver of solutions for global social impact and SDGs in accordance with the SASB standards.
I'm Greg Bethile. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Pencil. We're a $3.5 million a year nonprofit here in New York City that connects the business community and their experience with the 1 in 300 Americans who attend public school in New York City every day. So we can talk a little bit more about how we do that a little later.
So each of us have solutions for investing philanthropic dollars, which are typically 501c3 investments. We also have solutions for investing dollars that values-based investing with financial returns. And values-based investing with financial returns is across the spectrum of 100% philanthropic, so that would be 0 financial returns and obviously substantial impact returns. And then across the curve, 10, 20, 30, I'm a numbers person, but you can slice and dice the numbers any way that you like. I'm also a structured finance banker, and I've never seen anything that cannot be structured consistent with whatever laws anyone needs to follow, whatever regulators they need to adhere to. So I share that in terms of solutions for investing in impact that meet philanthropic goals and other goals that one might have. We're going to start with Robin Hood and go down the line.
Sure. So as I hope people in this room know a little bit about Robin Hood, but we're New York's largest poverty fighting philanthropy. Our model is unique. We were kind of the first venture philanthropy. Let's look at investments that we can scale based on data. We're still really well known for our metrics, applying business principles to philanthropic investments, something Paul was keen on early on and is still just so core to who we are. You might know our board, Paul, Peter, others, distinguished leaders from the business, investment, and philanthropic community. We have a really incredible network that we leverage to make an impact here in New York. And then, of course, there's our 100% promise. I think we were one of the first foundations or public charities to promise that our board will cover all administrative costs. So donations to Robin Hood go directly out the door. That is a super compelling thing for donors. So we love to remind folks of that. And then you may have been to our big parties. We bring 4,000 people or so together at the Javits Center every year, take over about 9 acres for, I believe, what is the world's biggest fundraiser. So save the date, May 15th, but that's a little bit about Robin Hood and how we do our work. And I'm happy to talk a little more. Or sure. So I think what's unique about Robin Hood right now is this moment in time. Greg and I were talking before the panel. We occupy this really unique position, building on our 35 years of grant making experience in the city. We have incredible credibility across sectors, deep ties, and a willing partner in government. We know the philanthropic and policy landscape really, really well. We know great community partners. We have this influential network of our board and our donors who literally fuel our work. So we're able to pull those levers to drive change and drive impact, which I think is unique to Robin Hood. And what we're finding is there are a lot of folks, individuals, philanthropies, families, family offices, institutions that are looking to Robin Hood as a resource and a guide on their learning journey. There's so many ways to plug in with Robin Hood. It's more than dollars. We really think of our donors as partners in this work. We can't do it without them. So we want to meet our donors where they are, which right now is really looking for some resources from us. So I pulled together this slide here, which is a little bit about that, but happy to speak about it a little more.
I also think there are parallels to all those asset classes we talked about. There are emerging philanthropies, right? Emerging programs that we need to experiment in testing, because you can't just throw all the money to the United Way and the Red Cross. But you
Totally.
have a labs orientation too, which I think is a unique thing. And
Yeah, I think we kind of pride ourselves on doing a little bit of R&D for government. Our goal is always we're talking about scale in New York City, which is a really big problem to tackle, right? There's 1 million kids in New York City public schools. Robin Hood grants out about $130 to $150 million each year. New York City's budget is $100 billion. The state's is $200 billion. So we're a drop in the bucket. So what we want to do is find what is the biggest bang for the buck? What data are we looking at to drive impact? Put your philanthropic dollars to work. The great story is needle exchange program in the 90s. Government was really resistant to that program. We were looking at data like we know this works during the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and eventually government took that on. Robin Hood no longer funds it, is completely funded by government. That's a great success. I think where Robin Hood also leans in is this moment of Mayor Adams, Governor Hochul, they get along. They dictate a huge allocations each year. They have great relationships with us. We know the chancellor really well. We have a lot of connectivity to government, and we want to be able to say, hey, Mayor Adams, what are you interested in? Where do you want to do work? How can we plug in with you and support you? So a great example of that is a $100 million childcare initiative that we launched in May. We all know there's a childcare crisis in New York and nationally. So we're going to be putting together solutions, leveraging city dollars to create more access to childcare and opportunities to learn in those spaces.
Thank you. We're going to go to the next speaker. I'll share a little bit more about the project, but the one thing I want to add, and thank you, Mark, for that comment. When the good news is that today, in the expansion language of social impact, is the focus on measurement. And whether it's ESG or values-based investing or impact, we're not going to speak about the words per se. The good news is that there are very clear verticals, whether it's climate justice, whether it's racial equity, whether it's social equity, whether it's gender equity. There are matrix around each about many verticals that each of us are seeking to invest, whether as a full philanthropic investment or whether a financial investment, matrix to measure. The challenge in the industry is that there's not one standard. So we have Sustainalytics, and we have at least 15 different ways to measure. But the good news is that we have ways to measure, and whether it's your advisor or yourselves who define how they want to be measured and what that process is, that is, we have an opportunity now to do that. And we're going to learn about more opportunities here. And I don't want to say ed tech, but education and health and wellness and mental health is one of the key verticals in this panel. You're next.
So there are 50,000 people sleeping in the shelter in New York City every night. Over 100,000 people cycle through the shelter system during any given year. The number is only growing. We have a significant homelessness crisis. The numbers are higher than any time since the Great Depression. Families with children are the biggest population that are homeless and in the shelter system. Senior citizens who have lost their homes after a lifetime are ending up in the shelter system at higher rates than ever before. It's grown by 300% the past few years, and it's expected to triple if there's not anything done about this. So I mentioned our responsibility at Community Access is to create a path to end homelessness in New York City. We build beautiful apartment buildings that provide on-site social services for the tenants that live in our buildings. We own and operate $500 million worth of real estate. And we have a goal to build 3,000 more units of housing over the next several years that will house 10,000 people. In addition to housing, we provide a cadre of mental health, of vitally needed mental health services, including a treatment program, a psychiatric rehabilitation and treatment program. We have a respite program that is a place where folks who are experiencing a mental health crisis can go instead of going to hospitals for month-long plus stays where they will likely be over-medicated and under-treated and under-respected. The list goes on. Mental health and homelessness are issues that I think everyone in this room can see are relevant to New York City. I also happen to think that homelessness and mental illness are probably the most underfunded and underthought and least thought about areas of philanthropy. I know that this is a group of folks who are investors, and you are representing families and offices that are thinking about how they can make a difference in New York City. Investing in organizations like any one of us here is really it really matters because funding from government sources are not enough. Organizations like practically all of ours exist because the government, city and state governments have not put into place infrastructure that can support the actual needs of the community.
And your greatest need?
Our greatest need is we're building 3,000 units of housing, which will be funded substantially by government contracts. But in order to reach that goal, we have to raise about $20 million in private support over the next 5 years.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm Brittany Flatley. As I mentioned earlier, I'm sitting in for Sarah Trubridge, so I will do my best with her presentation. So ET&H Foundation was essentially born out of all of these issues. We have sat and thought about how do we solve some of these philanthropic problems, but also address from the other side of the table for investors. How do we measure this? I want everybody to, if you can, look at Calvert Research and Management. They have a great SASB integration case study as to why SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, matter to investors. They highlight 3 points: prioritizing key development goals necessary for stable societies, providing a common framework and language to facilitate engagement among investors, and lastly, calibrating investors with evolving societal norms. I think this is very important, particularly when we talk about impact and philanthropy and investing. So if you want to hit the slide. So our goal is to awaken and uplift humanity. As I mentioned earlier, we focus on sustainable development goals from the UN that were adopted in 2015. On the screen, we focus on ending poverty. We do this by providing quality education targeted specifically to gender equality, providing decent work and economic growth. We also touch upon peace and justice, strong institutions, sustainable cities, and partnership and goals. So obviously all the SDGs are interlinked with one another, but these are the areas that we focus on specifically. Next slide. We have a new and different approach that is focused in resilience, strength-based training, and appreciative inquiry. So a lot of organizations, you can go on the internet, point and click, donate, and then the experience is over. We offer grants and RFPs like many organizations, but we also offer built community. We understand that many nonprofits are siloed, and so we offer opportunities for those organizations to come together, whether that's conferences in person or via Zoom, and other ways for them to share information and collaborate and co-create. Next slide. We are essentially creating an ecosystem. So ET&H Foundation has launched, we will formally launch January 4th and make the announcement that all of you will hear in this room today that we have brought on Peace Jam. Peace Jam is an organization that has 14 Peace Nobel laureates that pair with youth across the globe. So we have brought them under our umbrella, and we will provide human capital, other forms of capital and support to them throughout the year. And we do this through a partnership of investors like yourself and other organizations. Next slide. And here's a short video to watch just on some of our impact. So as you can see there, we focus a lot on youth, moving from the old paradigm to the new paradigm and trying to educate the new humanity, as we mentioned earlier. Next slide. And so our ask is always, come find us, ask us how to get involved, ask more questions. Obviously, the team is me today. So come find me afterwards. I can talk to you about the Sustainable Development Goals. I can talk to you about the SASB standards. We can talk about the Calvert reports. And I can try my best to educate you on how and why it's important to make these types of investments.
Thank you. Very exciting to know that Peace Jam launched at Dec.1. Thank you, Mark. And now we have Greg.
So I don't have any slides. I guess I'm here in two capacities. I'm the CEO of a small nonprofit here in New York City, and would love to share a little bit about our background, more importantly, what we represent in terms of other small nonprofits in the city and what it may mean for the kind of investments you can make as family offices and other investors. I'm also Mark's goalkeeper on the weekend, so I think that's what got me the seat at the table.
We're gonna watch the games.
My
house.
Okay. I think the equal number of American fans.
I'm gonna outshine you with orange. It's okay.
Right, sorry.
I thought that was New York City orange. I forgot about our Dutch origins. So let me just ask a question, just looking around the room real quick. How many folks went to New York City public schools? 1, 2. How many of the rest of you have ever stepped foot in a New York City public school? Now we're up to 10 or 12. That's the problem that Pencil was founded to solve back in 1995. There's a major disconnect between those that were working and living in New York City and those that attended and had an investment in the public schools. We had a very simple program, Principal for a Day, that invited business and civic leaders to show up at a public school and shadow a public school principal to get a sense of both the challenges, but more importantly, the opportunities and potential that lived inside those schools. We've had over 15,000 New Yorkers have done Principal for a Day over the last 27 years. And over that time, our programs have evolved just as New York City has evolved. At the beginning, there were no CSR offices in large companies. There were not those that were really making investments in the New York City public schools. We like to think that one of our best principals for a day was a guy who went on to become Mayor Bloomberg. He showed up in the late 1990s and eventually decided to make education a major priority for his administration because we know how important it is. When we talk about all of the different industries that you're here discussing, every one of them is going to need either an informed public in the future to understand what the opportunities are or well-trained and motivated employees. I wasn't kidding before when I said 1 in 300 Americans attends public school in New York City every day. It's about 1 million kids, a little bit more if you include the charters, out of about 311 million Americans, and there you are. And the fact that we can sit in a room like this and it looks nothing like the public schools in New York City, years ago would have been a problem. Now we see it as an opportunity for you. There's a whole bunch of potential in the public schools to tap into. 1 in 10 of those students experience homelessness at some point during the year, need the supports that folks like Community Access provide. Pencil is a $3.5 million a year, 24-person nonprofit. What we do these days really boils down to 3 things. We continue to do Principal for a Day. You're welcome to join us on May 9th and 10th, coming up in 2023. Principal for a Day partners often ask us to help facilitate their school partnerships throughout the year. We do that around college and career readiness, but really around the basic idea that if kids can't see what they can be, they're limited in the opportunities they can pursue. JP Morgan Chase is one of our big partners. They're building a new building. I think it's up to about 38 floors right now. Some of the kids, the construction workers that are working on that building will never have the opportunity to see the inside of that building when it's completed, unless somebody opens the door and gives them the opportunity to do that. In addition, we have a large internship program that we work with the city on that we get about 5,000 applications every year. We place about 1,000 kids in paid internships each summer. If you or any of the companies in New York City that you're investing in need talent, labor, and diverse talent and labor, we have thousands of students that are ready to come work for you. Just call us. Most importantly, we are a tiny nonprofit. Small investments in nonprofits like ours can go a long way, but there are hundreds of small nonprofits across New York City. Getting the attention of family offices is often hard because we don't have the time and often don't have the entree into rooms like this. But importantly, what you can do and what the families you represent can do is make a huge difference for those nonprofits. And not necessarily simply by donating, but donating your time and your talent to help them really build their infrastructure and figure out what they're doing. And small investments in small nonprofits can make a big difference and really return investment on the impact that they're having each year. So what I would encourage you to do is if you're looking at making investments, it's not just the big flashy things. Our gala is tonight. We do not have 9 acres. We do not have 4,000 people coming. We're not trying to raise $110 million. But if anybody would like to join me, we'll be at the Edison rooftop in about 2 hours. So I'm going to have to get going. But every nonprofit goes through that cycle in New York City and would really encourage you to think not just about the money you can invest, but what is the expertise that sits in the companies you're working with and how can that be connected to the talent and potential in the New York City schools?
I'm just going to do the wrap up remarks and say that there are solutions here from small to large and everything in between, from philanthropic returns and also everything in between, and end with some of the work that Amalgamated Bank does, which is, you know, I did not bring slides. It's on our website. Does way more justice than I could ever provide in a few slides. But to say that as a publicly traded bank, their amalgamated bank is the only financial institution that's a benefit corp. And for those of you that know what a benefit corp is, and I suspect in this audience in particular, many do, the quarterly audit that a company must go through to adhere to the rules and regs of a benefit corp speaks to the commitment of amalgamated bank in terms of social equity. And then the verticals for the bank includes racial equity, social equity, climate justice, climate change. And I'm very excited to help them and help advance their mission, which does result in financial returns. And sometimes that's with the help of a foundation. Most recently, Amalgamated Bank extended a loan to a small nonprofit with focused in underserved communities, and that nonprofit was backed by the Kresge Foundation. The credit was, so that allowed a publicly traded bank to extend a $15 million loan to an institution that didn't have the financial statements that would warrant a $15 million bank loan. But that's why I said earlier about structuring opportunities in a transaction that's consistent with regulatory standards and fiduciary standards and any other standards that one must adhere to. So thank you so much for your time. We're all still around for more questions, and I know we went a little bit over, but hopefully not too much over. Thank you very much, Mark, for this opportunity.
We have to have at least one question. That's a rule or comment. There's one more panel on next gens, then we're doing the breakouts, but just any go, Christian.
I came across an initiative in Germany I came across an initiative in Germany from Ashoka called Carry for Good, where fund managers are pledging part of the carry to charities.
Come join our 361 firm community of investors and thought leaders. We have a lot of events created by the community as we collaborate on investments and philanthropic interests. Join us.